No, I'm the same way with all the apps and websites and stuff. I'm just as clueless with a lot of that stuff.
We could have been taping this for the last 10 minutes.
God, I hope not.
Age appropriate works for me.
Oh, is it? Not quite, is it? Oh, is it? Okay. Let me call the meeting to order. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you, and join me with pledge allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First of all, let me eliminate any concerns with everyone watching. I haven't been appointed mayor or anything. The town's safe. Mayor Doffmar is out of town on business, so I'm filling in for him tonight. So fortunately, I think we have a fairly light agenda, so let's get through it. Danielle, would you do the roll call, please?
Mayor Dolphmeyer, Mr. Vickers,
Here.
Miss Lillard,
Here.
Mr. Shiro,
Here.
Mr. Pettit,
Here.
Mr. Stowers,
Here.
Mr. Webb.
Here. Okay. Steve, Open Space Park Zoning District.
Yes, sir. The Planning Commission has been working to develop an open space park zoning district that could be applied to large tracts of open space that are primarily or are intended to be used as public recreational areas. Some other additional uses would include forests, preserves, conservation areas, agricultural use, and cemeteries. A special use permit would be required for any public service facilities, bed and breakfast home, commercial recreational facilities, and campgrounds. The Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing and unanimously recommended approval of the code as presented.
Okay, so just to make it clear, this would be initiated by the property owner at the request of the property owner. It's not
Correct.
something the town would unilaterally initiate.
Correct. This would have to be initiated by a property owner. The intent from the town's perspective is once council considers and approves and establishes this zoning district, we would start working with the Planning Commission to rezone the town park properties to this zoning district. And then if a private property owner desired to rezone their property, they would have to submit an independent application for that request.
Council members, any questions?
I've got one that just popped into mind as I looked at this. Is there any minimum size? I don't see anything in there that specifies a minimal, what the minimum size could be.
And no, sir, there is not, and that's primarily because some of our pocket parks are fairly tiny.
Okay.
And so, again, during the rezoning process, if council thought that the request was out of the ordinary, if I came in with my quarter-acre property
Right,
in
that's
an
what I'm thinking.
R1 zoning district, council does not have to approve that rezoning. Spot zoning like that would probably not qualify for this
Okay.
rezoning.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that in there.
So if this zoning designation comes up, can it ever be changed back?
Yes, sir, but it would require.
Because I know in Rappahannock County, there's a lot of effort in getting scenic easements or permanent easements. So if a farm goes into that category, they can't ever be developed,
And that would be a conservation easement.
which is not this.
That's not this, but if you had a property that you put into a conservation district, this would be the most appropriate zoning district for that, because
Which makes sense.
it significantly limits any development potential.
Right, okay.
Would this be a form of down zoning essentially? We know we've tried to steer clear of some of that in the past.
Well, we would not initiate it on private property. It would have
Of
to
course.
be the property owner.
No, and I understand that. Well, and what would our property owner's rationale be for doing that?
If I had 15 acres that I've farmed all my life, and forward, I wanted to encourage whoever owned it to continue that farming use. There's nothing that, as Councilman Vickers asked, if I put it into this zoning district and someone in the future wanted to change it, they would have to come back to the town with a rezoning request. So it
I guess the libertarian in me is kind of pushing back, saying, you know, what would be the rational? What do I care if the future owner? I understand, I guess, if I have children or something, but just trying to get in the head of where this would make
If you had
sense.
15 acres and say an acre is a family cemetery, you'd want to put that into it so that
correct.
nobody would ever
Okay,
want to dig them
that's
up.
good practical use. Or I guess if you had a family farm, you wanted to sell off certain parts of it to someone that wanted to
Certain parts you want to keep.
hunt it or use it for agriculture, whatever you want to ensure that they don't build it all around your.
Or if Yogi Bear Campground ever decided that they wanted to be annexed into the town, this would be the most appropriate zoning classification for them. Or
Okay.
anyone else that wanted to establish a
Okay.
campground in town.
Yogi's coming to town?
That's
That's a little
Just
ways
an
out.
example.
Just an example.
Not insinuating anything.
Probably would like it though.
No, thank you. Thanks for.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, Steve, split zoning parcels, rezoning?
Yes, sir. Next item, during the town's effort to reduce the number of split zone properties within the town, we've received a request from Valley Care Management to consider the rezoning of 3 of their parcels that are split zoned to a B1 zoning classification to coincide with the intent of those properties. Again, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and unanimously recommended the rezoning of these 3 parcels on North Hawksville Street.
So 3 part, is it, but it's all part of the house and driveway and,
Correct.
then there's a little parcel in the back, I guess.
Yes, sir. Well, no, this is not part of it. It's actually where they've got their administration building over here.
Oh, okay.
This is where the senior care facility is, and this is the Goshen House, and there's a number of, there's different zonings on the properties, R3, M1, and B1. Their intent is to maintain both of the parcels with the administrative offices and the senior care facility, and they are in the process of selling off the Goshen House. The intent of rezoning the Goshen House to B1 would allow it to operate as a bed and breakfast by right.
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay. Council, any questions or comments? Okay, so this will be scheduled for public hearing by council then?
At your
In
August meeting.
August,
Yes,
okay. Okay, bamboo.
There are a couple of, the state provides code 15.2.901 and 901.1 that the town could consider to regulate running bamboo within the town limits. It is a nuisance and non-native species that, when planted and established, can leave the property limits on which it was placed and become a nuisance to the adjoining properties. And again, the state would allow the town to consider including that in our vegetation code as one of the items that, if it does leave a property, the town could become part of the solution and force the property owner of origination to remove it from the adjacent properties.
See, I always thought that bamboo that grew up like that was very, very hard to contain any way you do it.
It is.
So if I
It is.
plant it anywhere on my property and eventually it spreads out to somebody else's, it's gonna be hard to dig out all those roots and stop it.
Yeah, but I've been in jurisdictions where it's prominent and it is a nuisance. I mean, it spreads, if it spreads into an adjoining property owner, then the adjoining property owner is the one that has to
Deal with it.
contain it. And, I mean, this makes sense from the regard that the person that originated it probably should be the person that has to contain it.
I had a neighbor that fought that.
Mhm.
I mean, he fought to try to contain the bamboo that had been planted years prior.
Mhm.
It came over onto mine too, and which I just try to keep it mowed and everything, but it would grow overnight. Yeah, it's amazing, but that was an individual that put it there himself, but then later regretted it.
Nice.
It was a challenge. It was a challenge to
Yep.
get rid of it.
My dad planted bamboo around our house in my hometown, and I went back a few weeks ago and showed my daughters where it was 50 years ago, where he started it. So it's still there. It's still thick. But if it comes into on your land, you can remove it yourself. I mean, you don't have to have the town's permission if someone's.
You do not, but once it comes onto your property, mowing it is one option, but if you were to miss a month,
Yes.
it does grow
If it gets
quickly.
woody.
And
it-
trenching is about the only way to contain it from what research we had done is that you,
Really?
and it's like 18-inch trench that will stop it, but short of a trench, it will
Huh.
continue to move. Yeah.
What's that, like pour a concrete wall in the trench or something to really stop it, or
Well, just an open trench.
just an open trench?
Right.
There are a couple spots in town. I think I might know what this place is, but
And birds are an issue too. That was a big problem my neighbor was having, was that when it would get thick or out of hand, and as his health was failing, he didn't keep up or get cut as frequent, and the birds would, certain time of the year, and I'm not sure what species that was, but they just flocked to it, and it was a mess. So, yeah, because it was so thick, they
It's,
just couldn't get it hide.
I've seen it take over 2 or 3 houses. I mean, it will, if you just allow it to spread.
And the intent of the consideration of the ordinance would be as a deterrent as well, because if people knew that they're potentially liable for intrusion on adjacent properties, it may reduce the likelihood of their planting it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other council members think. I think if we can lend some support to someone that's a victim of that, it would be good.
Okay.
Right now, before it's too prominent anymore.
We'll work with Jason to develop a code amendment and bring it back to y'all. We just wanted to see if you were
Is that-
interested in considering.
Is that okay with everyone? Everyone agree with that?
Then we'll,
Did I say something, William?
Yeah, Frank, go ahead, sure.
Only thing I need to know, my fence is right on the property line. I'm sure I'm grandfathered in, for the last, I know when the owls owned the property.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, they had a fence that went around, and when I bought the property, I just kept the fence maintained, redone it. I just need to know, since I'm grandfathered in, do I have a right of way to go on the other side of my fence and clear it?
Hmm.
That's the only thing I need to know.
right now, it's my understanding, well, the way that since we have no code established, you can only do control on your property. There's no
Right.
no
That's
opportunity.
what I'm doing now.
Yes, sir.
And it's, so far, I've taken out over 300 feet. Now, that's not counting this year. That's 5 years ago, I did like 180. And this year it was like 130. And what it's doing now, it's going right straight to my sewer line.
Mm.
And on the back side, it's going to Mr. Emery's property on County Street. And it's actually going through a building that belongs to the neighbor behind me. So what it's doing is going towards y'all's property. As far as the town, y'all probably, the way it's going now, you're probably looking at 50 to 60 feet from y'all's sewer lines, heading towards Mechanic Street. The only thing I need, I'm trying to help the lady out, and I've known her for years. And, the thing that bothers me, and she's got a lot of help there, they can do it, but, of course, I told her, I said, if I can get on your side, I can take a section, I gotta take 40 feet of fence down, possibly 15 other feet going the other way towards from the property. And possibly 2 crepe myrtles and rosy sharon bush, which I don't have a problem with that. But that's the only way, I've been reading up on this stuff, and it goes as far as 30 inches in the ground. I helped my son over in Fifth
Tremendous
Street.
root structure.
He bought the property, and I told him, I said, you made a big mistake. But he liked the house, he liked the property, so I had a guy from work one section up on the lower end of the property. And then he came back the following day and spent another 3 or 4 hours. That was $800. And then I had Dale Jeffries. After all said and done, we went down 30 inches. Probably 110 feet long and probably 40 to 50 feet wide.
That's great.
And that's a heck of a job. And what I'm thinking now, the more I trench this stuff, the deeper it's getting older. And the heart of this stuff is in the corner, because I remember when the people planted it. And that heart just keeps getting bigger, starts going down, and then it'll start shooting the shoots out. So only thing if I can help this lady, I'll be more than glad to take my fence down and get a backhoe in there if I'm allowed to do that.
Well, if she
Well, I
agrees
don't-
to it, then.
Oh, yeah.
What I don't want is for somebody to come back on me later saying, hey, why'd you do this in my yard,
Well,
I
again,
mean, I can put it all back, that's no problem, if she agrees with it, but I just don't want something to come back on me later, you know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
you're probably best to write up a little thing
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
your neighbor agrees to give you,
Exactly.
yeah.
But that's basically, I'm glad that it's moving forward with this stuff, because I mean, to tell you, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Right now, I got some growing in it, and it's probably, at 15, 20 feet away from my foundation. If this stuff finds a crack in your foundation, it's gonna go through it, and it will come up through your concrete floor.
Well, we're gonna work on it, Frank. We'll get something initiated, but,
I appreciate it.
yeah, and, I didn't know this was your bamboo. I wondered why you were here.
Yeah, I'm glad Mr. Burke called me back.
Yeah.
You've been very kind about that, and I appreciate that. But it's something that I just can't attack. I can't go over and raise Cain with a person
No,
that I've known for years.
yeah.
And my main objective is to get it out of there.
Mm.
But now you probably got a 20-foot, a 16-foot building, and actually it's growing underneath that. So even if I do dig it out, within the next 5 years, it's gonna take off
Yeah.
again.
Well,
So,
give us an opportunity to work through this, and we'll get something on the books, hopefully, about it. So, thank you, Frank. Thank you for your input.
Can I go this way?
Out this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other comments or anything on this? So the next item is a ARPA update, Steve?
Yes, sir, we'll try and just continue this until, we've not received any, treasury guidance updates yet. We're monitoring it. We did receive 2 proposals, for to assist us with the management of it. And Jason has indicated we can go into a closed meeting to interview both of those firms. If council desires, we'll schedule that either for your next meeting or the next work session, depending on the availability of the 2 firms that responded, and hopefully have them on board to assist us whenever the Treasury does provide guidance to us. And just if there's any questions or suggestions from council.
Was it
about-
hard to find those 2 firms?
Well, it wasn't hard. I mean, we advertised and they put in. I was hoping we would get more local. One is local, one is out of Maryland.
Okay.
But they both seem like they have the ability to provide some assistance to the town with managing the funds.
Well, we talked about it at the VML conference we went to last week, and I think it was a town manager for Scottsville gave a small presentation, and they've already looked like they've allocated some funds towards some park projects, and he was just really at the conference was kind of impressed and made a point that it's really not a lot. It's really wide open for what you can use it for. Again, they're using park projects. I think I'm just sitting around, talking to folks, and I saw the survey, and I had a nice conversation with Alex White about it recently. And honestly, with it's about $5 million.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be challenging. I mean, we really didn't come out of the pandemic in bad shape financially at all. It's going to be challenging to, I think, to spend the money to figure out where exactly we want to do. But in 4 years, I don't want to be hopefully sitting back with $1 million in the bank. This is an opportunity to invest in recreation. I've even thought about maybe of course we know there are nonprofits out there that have requested money. I've even thought about the potential that we could invest in things like mental health counselors or even drug. I've talked to Bo about that. Maybe there's some opportunities to provide some support for even counseling services. We talked about recreational facilities and tennis courts, and I've always thought maybe even a permanent farmers market shelter would be a great idea. So, I hope we get those guidelines, but surely it seems like some places are already starting to spend it. And they were very clear. There are not a lot of regulations. I know, like the environmental, the normal review for federal money has sort of all been waived. So it's a lot of money with few strings attached to it. They're very clear about that at the VML. So I want us to take our time, but also think we're going to have. It's going to be a task. It's as crazy as it may seem to spend the money, to find a place to put it and put it in places that we think will impact positively in the long term. So that's just my take on it.
No, I think that's correct. It's going to be, it's a lot of money to have to spend, and the real challenge to it is how do you coming up with, even if as loose as the guidelines are from the federal level, I think we need to come up with some standardized guidelines on how we're going to do it so that everyone is assured that we're being fair on how we distribute it. That's the important part, I think, from our standpoint. So, any other comments? We had Jerry and I met with the county last week, and over the TOT money and that sort of thing, but it prompted a bigger conversation on establishing better communications between the counties and between the county and the towns. And it was suggested at that meeting that we reassume. Most of you probably remember at one point in time, three towns met regularly with the county on I think it was a quarterly basis. And those things kind of dropped by the wayside. And we thought that reestablishing those meetings might be a good avenue to reestablish some communication between the town and the county, and not only the TOT matter, but the other items as to, so far as what the town's projects are and how we envision the areas around town being developed and how the county wants to treat those areas in terms of development, and how we would prioritize utilities for those areas, and just a lot of things like that that would be good if we come up with some agreements or plans in place that would make it easier for people coming into the area would know what's available in some of those areas around towns. So they proposed, and was this their proposal for August 5th, or is that something we just came up with?
In talking with Stanley and Shenandoah, recognizing that we have 3 meetings a month, they have 4 each of those entities have 4 meetings a month, and the county has, I think, 4 meetings a month. It worked out that the available days were fairly limited. Shenandoah requested that if we did conduct it, that we conduct it in Stanley so that it wasn't as long of a trip. And then in talking with Terry Pettit, the 5th was the best day that met with the restrictions of the dates that couldn't work for any of the communities, and it was available at the fire hall. And it was our understanding that we wanted to start it as soon as possible. If there's a desire on the count, I know that Shenandoah and Stanley have already affirmed that the 5th would work for them. If it doesn't work for the town, we could possibly push back to a September date.
How do council members feel about it? I mean, I heard some of you say that's won't work for you. Is that?
Out of town.
Yeah, I can't make it the first one. but I'm very interested in doing it.
Okay. I mean, should we proceed then with the first meeting? And I think one of the first meeting is, we'll establish some guidelines for the meetings on how often they will occur, and who will be the full body of all three councils and board of supervisors. That's going to be a big group if it's all the councils of the towns and all the board of supervisors. So, but maybe, I mean, that's fine if everyone wants to leave it open like that. But if it could be narrowed down some, maybe the mayor and one council member or something like that, which we could avoid. Because as it stands now, we're going to have to open a meeting, a public meeting, and we're going to have to have minutes of the meeting. So when the entire council's meeting like that, that's going to be somewhat of a burden administratively too for some of those things. But I think at this first meeting, we'll discuss the format and frequency and location of the future meetings. So if it's okay with everyone, and if the two of you that can't make it are okay if we go ahead with this on the 5th, we'll agree to it then, I guess, too. So,
What time? We're looking at
7
We'll
o'clock
just
is
stay
what
on there?
they've proposed, yeah.
That's Stanley?
And we're
Stanley,
still on that
that's
sheet.
Stanley Fire Hall. Okay, Steve, did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
Other than the chief had gone to assist Detective Ron McClellan. He is actually out of the hospitalized rehabilitation and is now at home and going into.
Oh, he's at home. Wonderful. Great. That's great. That's great. Great news. Thank you, Bo. That's good news. Any other council members have anything they'd like to comment on? Okay, well then, a very short meeting. We're adjourned.